The McDonald's manager crosses his arms and speaks loud enough for everyone to hear. "We don't serve drunks here. Old man, you need to leave now or I'm calling the police." 83-year-old Frank Martinez sits alone at the corner table, his weathered hands shaking slightly as he tries to steady his coffee cup. A crowd of teenagers nearby starts recording with their phones, laughing and whispering about the confused old veteran whose dog tags catch the light. Beneath his worn flannel shirt, what happened next will completely change how you see every veteran you meet. If stories like this hit you right in the heart, smash that subscribe button and tell us in the comments about a veteran who changed your life. Trust me, you'll want to stick around for this one. Frank Martinez had been coming to this same McDonald's every Tuesday morning for 3 years. He always ordered the same thing, black coffee and a sausage biscuit. The routine helped him feel normal, gave him somewhere to go when the empty house got too quiet. But today was different. Today his hands wouldn't stop shaking, and his words came out slurred and broken. The Parkinson's disease was getting worse, much worse than he wanted to admit to his daughter Sarah, who lived 2 states away. The trouble started when Frank accidentally knocked over his coffee while trying to take his morning pills. The hot liquid spread across the table and dripped onto the floor. He tried to clean it up with napkins, but his trembling hands made everything worse. That's when the manager, a young man named Derek, who couldn't be older than 25, walked over with his chest puffed out and his voice full of authority. "You've been sitting here for 2 hours acting all weird and making a mess," Derek announced loudly. "Everyone can see you're drunk or on something. This is a family restaurant." Frank looked up with confused eyes. The fluorescent lights seemed too bright, and the noise from the kitchen felt like hammers in his head. He tried to explain about his medication, about the Parkinson's, but the words came out wrong. I don't drink," Frank managed to say, his voice barely above a whisper. "Just sick. Medicine makes me ... Derek cut him off with a wave of his hand. "Save it for someone who cares, old man. I've seen plenty of drunks in my time. You're making my customers uncomfortable." The restaurant had gone quiet now. Families with young children stared from their booths. A group of construction workers stopped eating their breakfast sandwiches to watch the scene unfold. The teenagers in the corner booth had their phones out, recording everything with big grins on their faces. One of them, a girl with bright pink hair, spoke loud enough for everyone to hear. "Oh my God, this is going viral for sure. Look how messed up this old guy is." Her friend, a boy wearing a Letterman jacket, laughed and added, "Bet he's been drinking since sunrise. Probably lives in one of those cheap motels down the street." Frank's face turned red with shame. He tried to stand up, but his legs felt weak and unsteady. The medication he took for his Parkinson's sometimes made him dizzy, especially in the morning. He grabbed the edge of the table to keep from falling. Derek saw this as proof of his accusation. "See, can't even stand up straight. That's it. I'm calling the police right now." A woman sitting nearby with her 2 young children shook her head in disgust. "There should be a law against people like that being in public," she said to her husband. "Those children shouldn't have to see this." Frank felt like the walls were closing in around him. Every face in the restaurant looked at him with judgment and disgust. He wanted to explain, wanted to tell them about the bronze star sitting in his bedroom drawer, about the 3 tours in Vietnam, about the 42 years he spent working as a machinist after the war, but the words wouldn't come out right. Instead, he just stood there swaying slightly, looking like exactly what they all thought he was, a confused old drunk who didn't belong in their clean, bright restaurant. The construction workers whispered among themselves. One of them, a large man with paint-stained clothes, stood up and walked toward Frank's table. "Hey buddy," the man said, not unkindly but firmly. "Maybe you should head home and sleep it off. Don't want any trouble here." Frank nodded slowly, his eyes filling with tears he fought hard not to let fall. He reached into his pocket for his wallet, hands shaking so badly he could barely grip it. As he pulled out a crumpled $5 bill to pay for his spilled coffee, something else fell out of his pocket and clinked against the tile floor, whose dog tags, the sound of metal hitting the ground, seemed to echo through the suddenly silent restaurant. The tags slid across the floor and came to rest near the feet of Derek, the manager who had been so quick to judge. Derek bent down to pick them up, probably planning to hand them back with another rude comment. But as he read the information stamped into the metal, his face changed completely. The first tag read, Martinez, Frank J. The second one listed his service number, his blood type, and something else that made Derek's eyes go wide. Bronze Star, Medal, Purple Heart, Vietnam 1968 to 1971. Derek stood there holding the tags, reading them over and over again. The teenager with the pink hair leaned over to see what was written on them, and her smug expression melted away instantly. "Oh no," she whispered, her phone still recording. "Oh no, we messed up bad." The construction worker who had approached Frank's table saw the tags too. His weathered face went pale as he read the words that told the real story of the man they had all been judging. "Sir," the construction worker said, his voice completely different now. "Sir, I am so sorry. We didn't know. We should have known, but we didn't." Frank looked around the restaurant, seeing the same faces that had been filled with disgust just moments before. Now they looked ashamed, confused, and deeply sorry. But the damage was already done. The humiliation still burned in his chest like acid. Derek handed the dog tags back to Frank with trembling hands. "Mr. Martinez, I don't know what to say. I had no idea you were a veteran. I thought... Frank took the tags and put them back in his pocket. His voice was quiet but steady when he finally spoke. "You thought I was just some old drunk who didn't matter. You thought I was worthless. And maybe I look that way now. But 40 years ago I was crawling through jungles in Vietnam, pulling wounded soldiers out of the line of fire." The restaurant was dead silent now. Even the kitchen staff had stopped working to listen. Frank continued, his words coming easier now, fueled by decades of held-back pain. "I got this Purple Heart when a piece of shrapnel tore through my leg during the Tet Offensive. I got the Bronze Star for saving the lives of 6 men in my unit when we were pinned down by enemy fire for 18 hours. He paused, looking around at all the faces staring at him. "But you know what the hardest part was? Coming home to people who looked at us like we were the enemy. People who spit on us in airports, called us baby killers, told us we were murderers." The woman with the 2 children had tears streaming down her face. Her husband put his arm around her shoulders, both of them looking like they wanted to disappear. Frank's voice grew stronger. "I came home from that war and never talked about it again. I worked 42 years in a machine shop, raised 2 kids, buried my wife of 58 years last spring, and now I have this disease that makes my hands shake and my words come out wrong. And I get treated like garbage because I look different than I used to." The teenager with the pink hair had stopped recording. She was crying now, her phone forgotten. On the table, "I'm sorry," she said through her tears. "I'm so sorry, sir. I didn't know." Frank looked at her with tired eyes. "You didn't know because you didn't want to know." It was easier to point and laugh at the weird old man than to think he might have a story worth hearing. Derek, the manager, was fighting back tears of his own. "Mr. Martinez, please, your meal is on us today. Every day you come in here. I don't know how to make this right, but please let me try." Frank shook his head slowly. "The coffee's already spilled, son, and the damage is already done. But maybe next time you see someone who looks different, someone who's struggling, you'll remember this day. Maybe you'll remember that every person has a story, and most of those stories are harder than you can imagine." The construction worker stepped forward again. "Sir, if I may, my name is Robert. My father served in Vietnam too. He never talked about it much, but I know it changed him forever. What you men went through over there, I can't imagine. And the way you were treated when you came home. It wasn't right then, and what happened here today wasn't right either." Frank nodded at Robert. "Your father was probably a good man who did his best with what he was given. That's all any of us can do." As Frank started to walk toward the door, the entire restaurant began to change. People stood up from their tables. The woman with the children approached him, her voice shaky. "Mr. Martinez," she said, "I want to apologize. I want my children to apologize too. What I said was wrong, and I'm ashamed. Would you... would you mind if I bought you breakfast? A proper breakfast, not just coffee." Frank stopped and turned around. He looked at her children, a boy about 8 and a girl about 6, both staring up at him with wide, curious eyes. "You don't need to buy me anything, ma'am. But if you want to do something meaningful, teach your children that respect isn't about how someone looks or how steady their hands are. Teach them that the old man sitting alone at McDonald's might be someone who once risked everything for strangers he never met." The little girl tugged on her mother's shirt. "Mummy," she whispered loudly, "is he a real hero?" Frank knelt down slowly, his knees protesting but his heart softening. I'm just a man who did what he thought was right when the time came, little one. The real heroes are the ones who didn't make it home. As Frank stood back up, something remarkable happened. The entire restaurant began to applaud. It started with Robert, the construction worker, then spread to every person in the building. They clapped for the man they had misjudged, for the service they had never acknowledged, for the dignity they had almost destroyed. Frank Martinez walked out of that McDonald's with his head held high for the first time in months. Behind him, he left a room full of people who would never again look at a struggling stranger and assume they knew the whole story. Derek, the young manager, kept Frank's regular table reserved every Tuesday morning after that, and when Frank returned the following week, his coffee was waiting for him, along with a small American flag Derek had placed next to the napkin dispenser. Sometimes, the greatest battles aren't fought on foreign soil. Sometimes they're fought in the everyday places where ordinary people have the choice to show kindness or judgment. And sometimes, it takes a glimpse at a pair of old dog tags to remind us that heroes don't always look the way we expect them to.